So, welcome to the second session of this employee counseling. Now, you know that we are running into the 7th week and this is the second lecture in the 7th week. And in this week we are talking about employee counseling. As you remember, we talked about employee counseling in the beginning and said that not always it is not necessary that training would be the solution. So, we go for other HRD interventions. And in that process we discussed, you remember we talked about coaching, mentoring, and in this continuation now we are talking about employee counseling. So, when we are going to discuss about employee counseling, we discussed some of the basic issues in the previous class. Now, we will see that what kind of assistance program can be offered to the employees, which is going to take care of their well-being, especially the mental health, right. So, as a part of the counseling, organizations are supposed to offer certain programs, or what we call as employee assistance program. In short, it is known as EAP, to help employee to overcome those problems, so that he is able to work effectively. So, in this session basically we will talk about the role of employee assistance program and as a part of the counseling and how it is going to help individual to overcome certain problems. Now, when we are going to talk about employee assistance program, we will discuss what is employee assistance program, what are the different kind of programs, how do we go about it, what are the benefits that you can derive if you have a problem and you are offered this program, what is the role of the HR professionals, what is the role of the organization, because ultimately this kind of program is offered by the HR department after getting the support from the management, right. So, unless management provides support in terms of resources and other things, and there is a mechanism to identify people who need this kind of assistance, it is not possible to offer this kind of program. So, what we are going to discuss here is what are the different kind of employee assistance program, how do we go about it, who provides it, and these kind of things. Now, the first question is that who is going to provide employee counseling. Now, when it comes to provide employee counseling or as part of the assistance program, so it depends upon the culture and the management. So, it is the responsibility of the management to ensure that these kind of assistance program are offered, though it may incur certain costs, but there are certain benefits also. We have discussed about that in the last class. So, if the management has a positive attitude towards employees and they want their growth and development, they want them to perform well, and as a part of their philosophy they have developed this kind of norms and values that if employees have problems or issues related to their health, especially mental health, then it is their responsibility to help them out, because this kind of problems may be because of workplace or it could be for different kind of reasons, right. But whatever is there in the real framework of the organizational setup and the context, it is the responsibility of the organization to provide these kind of support. And if they have this kind of norms and value system in the organization, this is what we call the culture, that we are always going to support employees irrespective of what they are doing, or if they are having certain issues, then we are going to provide them all the necessary support which is required to get them well, then it is good. So, it basically depends upon what you can say the philosophy and the attitude of the management and the kind of culture that exists in the organization. Moving further, you have to find out somebody who is going to provide counseling. Very few organizations have their own counseling centers. Sometimes it could be provided by people who are mature enough, who understand the things, right. Within the system or the organization, or HRD professionals can also be a part of it, because they are trained somehow in this area. So, they can provide this kind of counseling. It means that you are going to use resources within the organization, that is what we call corporate resources, to provide this kind of counseling, right. But if the expertise is not available within the organization, then you have to refer it to outside. It means that you have to go for an outside help to get the person treated. If you remember, when we discussed about various steps of the counseling, we talked about that first of all we need to identify the kind of problems that people have in general. Then you need to make them aware and educate about various issues which they can face in the organization. Then you go for treatment, right. When it comes to treatment, you have to see that who is going to provide this kind of treatment. It could be people from within the organization, or it could be people from outside. So, if you are going to select outside, then you have to follow all the norms. Okay. So far as counselors are concerned, their credibility, their background, their experience, okay, related to the past, what kind of counseling they have provided. So, you have to look at these kind of things, and accordingly, if you decide whether you are going to have resources from inside or you are going to have resources from outside to provide this kind of counseling. So, we have identified counselors who is going to do it. Now, if you are going to provide it in house, what happens? Because in house efforts is always good, because the person is known, right. You know, since he is working in the organization, you know about his background and you have all kind of information related to his performance, behavior, experience, knowledge, all kind of information is available to you. So, if you have all kind of information, then it is going to provide you some kind of advantage compared to an outsider, right. So, the advantage could be in different areas, like you have better control over the individual, because he is already working with the organization, and the counselor, either a HRD professional or somebody else in the organization who has some expertise in this field, at least he knows about the individual. So, he would be in a better position to control the individual. Okay. He knows about the organization also, where the person is working, he knows about the systems, structure and processes. He can go for better coordination of all the efforts related to have a good counseling in the organization, because you can talk to him, and then it provides you a sense of ownership that okay, you are from the organization, and then you are going to help somebody within the organization, and this gives you some kind of ownership, right. So, you feel that yes, you are the person who is going to help you, because it is your organization and it is his organization. So, being a member of the organization, as a citizen of the organization, it is your responsibility to help the other person, okay. And that is where citizenship behavior also comes, because though it may not be a part of our job, but as a part of our extra role behavior, we try to help the people, taking this sense of ownership or responsibility to yourself, right. And then you have better credibility, because the person who is being counseled know you, and he can impose faith on you, provided the relationship between the counselor and the client is confidential, and so the counselor, the person who is being treated, have all the faith and trust on the person. Otherwise, he is not going to open himself to the counselor, and he will not provide all kind of information that would be required for the diagnosis, right. So, it all depends upon the credibility of the person who is going to do the counseling. But there are few disadvantages also that is associated with this. Since the person is internal, he knows about ins and outs of the all kind of things. So, you need to make sure that this at no point of time there is a breach of confidentiality. So, any conversation, any discussion, any dialogue or interaction that happens between the person who is being treated and the counselor should be kept totally confidential. In fact, there is a code of ethics as per the Psychological Association, which suggests that any kind of information cannot be divulged related to the individual to any person or agency for any reason. Okay. So, if this confidentiality is to be maintained, but if this confidentiality is not maintained by the counselor who belongs to the same organization, then this creates a big problem for the person itself, right. So, this is to be looked into. Sometimes you do not have resources within the organization, okay. Then you have to go for outside resources or external resources. Okay. Sometimes people are not going to someone who is from within the organization. They have all kind of fears or hesitations to talk to someone who is already working in the organization, and then again probably this comes out because of the trust. Okay. So, the employee is not willing to go and take these kind of services from somebody who is already working in the organization, maybe the HRD professionals, maybe the supervisors or somebody else who is in a position to provide this kind of counseling. So, this needs to be taken up, and then if you are going to maintain a sense or a climate where you can assure confidentiality, trust and these kind of things, probably then it is good, otherwise this is not going to help the individual, and they will not come forward voluntarily to seek any kind of help from counselors internally, right. And then you know that since people may not be having the requisite skill and expertise to act as a counselor, because except HRD professionals, others are not trained in the area. So, they will not be able to provide the kind of counseling that is expected depending upon the requirement of the individual. So, there are certain limitations also that might be there. Now, moving to the next one, that is external resources. So, external resources are used, you know that when there is internal resources are not available, or the lack of requisite skill and knowledge base, or if you fear about confidentiality, trust, right. So, if these are some of the issues because of which you go for external resources, and you find a counselor somebody from outside who is going to provide all kind of assistance to the people who need this kind of counseling. Now, when we are going to talk about external counselors, it has certain advantages, because you know that and that in that case at least you know that you are going to have somebody who is good, who has all the requisite knowledge and skill base, who is going to maintain confidentiality, because he is somebody outside, and they follow all the ethical norms related to the counseling. Similarly, and that this is going to be very cost effective, because maintaining a full time counselor would be more costly compared to having a counselor bed being outsourced. Because if you are going to have a full time counselor in your organization, probably it is going to cost you more, and that is why you will find that very few organizations have counselors in their organizations who is going for counseling of the people, except in some educational institutions where you will find counselors who are working with the students, but the number is very large and it is cost effective, and that is why they go for these kind of things, right. Then since external counselors are better equipped with resources and knowledge, so they would be in a better position to treat the people, okay, and that is one of the major advantages compared to having an internal resource. But again there are certain disadvantages that you have to find out somebody who is really good, who can help, and that is where you have to find out whether these kind of services are available, okay. Because many organizations find that these kind of services are not available nearby, or the locations at which they are located, right. So, this creates some kind of problems, and sometimes you have to send your people to the person where the counseling is being done, and that again incur certain cost on the individual and these kind of things. So, these are some of the advantages, and then when he is going to communicate. So, you have to see that the level of communication and other things related to the communication that we have already discussed may not crop in, and if that is happening and the communication is not happening, especially the person is not able to understand your problem the way you are going to communicate, because the person first has to understand the context in which you are working, what are the problems that you are happening, why it is coming up, he will not be able to help you. So, you need to discuss all these things with the person concerned if he is an external customer, and this is that is one of the advantages for the internal counselors, because he is familiar with the context, the culture and the environment of the organization, and he can very well understand the kind of problems that you have been facing. So, it would be better for him to treat compared to an outside person, right, and that is what I was telling you, because he is not familiar with the context and culture of the organization, the systems and processes which is followed, which may be one of the reasons for these kind of issues, and that is why you go for this kind of things. So, you have to see that what kind of counselors you are going to have internally and externally, depending upon the availability, resources and the requirement of the people, you decide who is going to do this kind of counseling for the people, so that employee could be assisted to get well. Now, next thing that we are going to discuss is what are the characteristics of the effective programs, I mean counseling programs. So, if you want to make it effective, it is more or less same thing that we have been discussing about other kind of HRD interventions. When it comes to support from the top management and their commitment, that is must, because they are going to provide you all the resources for any kind of counseling program, because it incurs a cost, and top management should also have a policy and process for the counseling. Just like for training, you have a training department, or there are people who are going to take it on a regular basis, on a cyclical basis, and regularly conduct training programs. So, similarly, you also should have a policy related to the counseling, so that employee could be assisted during the stress, but it does not happen. Most of the organizations I have seen does not have counseling at all, okay, and they do not have any kind of policy related to this kind of thing, except schools or educational institutions where they have a very well written, laid out, clear process and policies related to the counseling, right. So, these are some of the issues that need to be looked into, and then you have to see that there is a cooperation between the different sets of employees. the unions are going to support this kind of activity, because ultimately the distress mostly happens with the lower rung of the people in the organization, or it could also happen to senior or middle level people, but they could afford this kind of things even on their own initiatives by going out and seeking help from an expert counselor. But those who are working at say very junior level, they are neither in a position to afford, nor they are being educated and become aware about the kind of problems, so that they recognize that they have a problem, and that is where they need the support of the union. So, union may be having its representative who are going to keep a watch and see if people are going to have problems, and then refer to the management, so that they could be help out, right. So, these are some of the issues that you need to look into, and then you have to say what are the, how we are going to take care of the employees who are having some kind of problems, right. Whether you are going to refer to internally, or you are going to find out somebody from outside who is going to help him, and then you are going to continuously follow it up also to ensure that this problem does not recur again. Okay. So, these are some of the issues related to this one, and then moving further we will discuss some other issues. Then confidentiality, I have already been talking about this, that you need to ensure total confidentiality of anything that goes on between the counselor and the person who is being treated. Okay. At no point of time you are going to leak or divulge the information related to his treatment to any person, except top management, who might look into these issues to find out some kind of solution or intervention to help that person. Okay. Except that this kind of information cannot be leaked to any person, except maybe his fellow colleagues, subordinates, seniors. Nobody should be in a position to look at this kind of information. I should not be made available to them, except those who matter. Okay. Maybe the line managers, maybe the top management, maybe the HRD professionals who are associated with this task, because they are going to design some kind of intervention based on the feedback that is coming out of this dialogue or interaction between the counselor and the person concerned, to see that how they could be helped out, right. So, confidentiality at all level is to be maintained. Then records, all records related to the meetings, frequency of meetings, what is being discussed, okay, what is the progress and everything, okay, has to be made. And then health insurance benefits. Okay. So, as a part of the health insurance benefits, which usually do not cover mental health care, but mostly it covers physical health care. So, it is good that if organizations have this kind of policy, that in addition to going for physical health care, they are also able to connect mental health care as a part of their insurance benefits related to the health. Probably that would be better for the organization, though it may cost some additional say money for the organization, but you are going to provide this kind of coverage to the employees to take care of the mental health issues as well. So, that would be better, and it depends upon the kind of policy that our organization has, whether you are going to have provide this kind of coverage as a part of their insurance, especially health insurance. But at the same time you also need support and help from the family. So, the family needs to be educated that how you are going to take care of such persons, okay, because family is the caregiver. Okay. They are going to provide all the support during off hours and when he is not working. Okay. So, he might be having certain things in his mind and he goes back. So, the family should also be sensitive to those requirements and see that how this person is going to be handled off work, okay, at home and other places, so that he does not create any kind of problem and does not become an embarrassment for family members or others. Okay. So, family members also need to be made aware about the kind of issues that he is facing and what is their role in the process, okay, so that this program is going to be more effective. Because if you are going to expect that only counselor is going to help you, no, its counselor is going to provide you treatment, but at the same time you have to see that it is monitored on a regular basis. You are doing those things that is required as a part of the action plan or the development plan, and family has a role as a caregiver to support these kind of activities even during off hours also. So, family education is also very important and it is a part of the process as such. Now, we are moving to another important issue, that is what we know as counseling process. So, if you look at the counseling process, what actually happens? Okay. You remember we talked about different stages of the counseling, that first of all we are going to identify the requirements of the counseling, then we are going to find out somebody who is going to do it. Okay. and then at the next stage we are going to provide treatment or based on the referrals, and then once the person is treated, we are going to monitor it on a continuous basis and then follow it up. So, these are the various steps that we look into. And now, formally if you look at it, the counseling process, it involves 6 stages. Okay. So, that once the process starts, it means now you are identified as a person who seeks help or who require help. Now, if that happens, what you are going to do is that you have to establish rapport with the person who is going to counsel you. Okay. Now, you need to take care whether it is the internal counselor or external counselor. With the internal counselor, you already have built up certain rapport and relationship. So, that helps, but if you are having an external counsel, then that counsel has to see that how they are going to establish rapport with the person concerned, because unless you are able to establish good rapport with the person concerned, what happens? He will not express his voice, he will not come out what is there in the mind. So, we will not be able to know what is the problem, and this relationship building is based on trust and respect for each other. I have already discussed about it. So, you have to build this kind of relationship based on trust, so that he is able to provide information related to his problem. So, during the diagnosis, that probably help the counselors. So, the first stage you are not going to talk about the problem as such. At the first stage, when the interaction begins, you are going to develop good relationship, and if you are not able to develop good relationship, probably he will not be able to express anything on his own. Okay. Then you move to the next stage, then you start assessing his situations. So, you look into his background, his experience, his qualification, you talk to his supervisors, his fellow colleagues, and that is must for the assessment, and you also conduct certain tests, okay, as a part of the counseling process to find out his the level of anxiety, stress, whatever it is, depression, that would help you to identify what is the level, because it is a part of the assessment and diagnosis. And similarly, you try to get feedback in a comprehensive way from different sources to assess that whether these factors are responsible for this problem or not, right. So, at the second stage, once you have built up the rapport, good relationship, he is able to open himself, then you move to the next stage, that is assessment and diagnosis. And as a part of assessment, what you do? You try to find out the state of affairs and then see what is the problem and why this problem has happened. Then once the problems are identified after the assessment process, you move to the next stage, that you identify that okay, this is the objective of this assessment process, counseling process. This is what you need to achieve through this counseling. Suppose a person is identified as having extreme depression, right, is under depression. Now, once the person, if a person who is depressed and you are trying to establish relationship, and once the relationship is established, then you have to find out whether this depression is a cause of something or whether it is the outcome of certain things, right. So, definitely the depression is outcome in this case. So, you need to identify those factors which are responsible for this, and in what way you can help the individual to overcome this kind of problem, right. That is the part of your strategy, so far as you identifying the goals and objectives is there. So, you develop an action, after that you develop an action plan also, that okay, this is how the person needs to be helped. So, as a part of the counseling goal, you have to see that what needs to be done, okay. In terms of achieving certain objectives. You remember, when you are going to design and develop a program, it is very important that you develop a specific objectives. So, specific objectives of this counseling process or program is this one. So, you have to see that as a part of the counseling, as a goal of this counseling, you are going to ensure that person is free of these kind of depression, he is able to help themselves, he can understand okay, these are the things, and based on this objectives, then you are going to develop an action plan. Okay. That is what intervention means. Okay. So, as a part of the intervention, you decide certain things that needs to be done by you as well as the counselee both, right. So, the person has to develop an action plan, and he is going to be assisted by the counselor in the process, so that he is going to overcome this kind of problem, right. And then next stage, the fifth stage, okay. Once you know, you understand that yes, the person has recovered fully, okay, then you terminate this counseling, because that is not required now, and then you follow it up that these kind of things do not happen, because maybe those factors which were responsible may again crop in, okay, or trying to influence them. So, you need to ensure and also seek assistance from other, maybe seniors, with fellow colleagues, maybe the HRD departments, to ensure that these kind of things does not happen. So, that this problem is not coming up again, right, and that could be a part of what you call the follow up. And finally, the last stage, you do some research, okay, and evaluation to ensure that why it is happening. Okay. So, that is a part of the counseling process, that okay, you get the data that okay, this could be the factors which could be related to depression, and then how you are going to deal with these kind of factors, okay, right. You can identify the extent to which these factors are causing depression in the individual, and this is all a part of the counseling process. So, if you look at employee assistance program, okay, the idea is to help the employees, right, within the organization. Okay. So, to start with, first of all, what you are going to do within the job, you want to see that okay, who are the troubled employees, okay. And as I told you, as a part of the process, you are going to identify it using a mechanism taking feedback from different sources to find out who are such employees. And you can ask their fellow colleagues, you can ask their supervisors, you can look at the performance reports, okay. And then you are going to motivate himself to resolve the problem, because it is not the counselor who is going to help him out. The person himself has to work on that action plan to help them, right. And then as a part of the organization, the management, you are responsible to provide them to access to this process and treatment as and when it is required. Okay. So, employee assistance program are very good, provided the management has good support and you are trying to help the employees to go through it. Okay. Some of the issues that is addressed by employee assistance program, especially these are some of the problems you can say which might happen. Okay. These are the common problems which might happen in the organization, okay. Like drinking habits or behaviors, alcoholism, drug abuse, this is another big problem, right. Anxiety, okay. Depression, there could be various factors because of which people get into these kind of problems. Depression, there could be eating disorders, or okay, either you eat too much or do not eat at all, right. It could be related to other factors, but yes, you know that it is found that during stress you overeat. Okay. So, this is a part of eating disorders, right. So, these kind of issues might happen. Then you have if you are a compulsive gambler, okay, it become a part of your habit, and you know that if you are engaged in these kind of things while working, probably you are going to lose out everything, okay, your family and other things. Okay. And then I mean you may have financial issues, crisis at home and family, and this is going to affect your performance as well, right. So, these are some of the issues that need to be looked into. If you have a marital problem, adjustment related issues and other kind of things, right. Of course, financial problems, that could also be a reason, because if your job is not paying well, okay, the personal problems, your own personal problems that you have, it could be related to lack of knowledge, skills, other issues, right. So, if you look at these problems that we have been talking about, this is to be addressed by any employee assistance program. So, you have to ensure that how you are going to help people who are going to be affected by these kind of problems, right. Because if people have these kind of problems, directly or indirectly it is going to affect performance of the people, productivity of the organization, they would remain absent from the job, right. They would leave the organization because they will not be able to offer their services. Okay. And you know that if they are going to be unemployed, it is going to cause them huge costs. So, these are some of the issues that you can find out. Okay. Then the cost of substance abuse treatment is very high. You know that once you are addicted to this kind of drugs, then it becomes very difficult. So, you have to see that in what way organization is going to help you out, okay. Because if you look at the in terms of cost benefit analysis, it is always good that organization has a policy on this and is going to help it out, so that these problems do not happen. Accidents, so, suppose you are drunk and you are working on machines, there is a probability of making accidents, right. So, these kind of issues and outcomes can be affected by any kind of employee assistance program, or training is required. Okay. So, I mean the replacement costs are very high, because the people who are already working, you know that they have all the knowledge and experience to work, and if you are going to replace them with another person, so that selection cost, training cost and all kind of costs will be very high. So, it is always good to provide them assistance, so that they could be help out, right, insurance benefits, something happens, and all kind of things which is related to this one. So, this is a not as exhaustive list. What I have tried to do here is to provide you certain issues and outcomes which could be affected by them. Then, if when it comes to offering you say employee assistance program, yes, on a global scale you can say almost 60% organizations provide this kind of services. Okay. And but if you come down to smaller organizations, they are not in a position to afford the cost, and that is why they do not provide this kind of services much, except in some cases, right. And big firms have their own centers, sometimes they have well laid out policies related to employee assistance, okay. But when it comes to smaller firms, they do not have. Okay. What are the issues of importance basically that they look into is, we have already talked about, especially substance abuse and mental health problems faced by the companies. Okay. I mean the people in the companies, in the organizations, right. Then how they are going to approach employee assistance, that is another important issue. Whether you have a part of the philosophy, you have policies and procedures or not, I am talking about those things. Then how effective these kind of things are there to treat these kind of problems that people have. So, that these are some of the issues that need to be looked into by the organizations. For example, if you look at substance abuse, it is a big major problem in organizations. Okay. We know that lot of people use alcohols or drugs, okay, and this is going to cause major problems them physically, mentally both. Okay. If you look at the data, alcohol is involved in a lot of industrial injuries. You know that even drivers when they are drunk, they make accidents. Okay. And this is one of the major reasons of highway accidents. Okay. Even at the workplace also this kind of things can be found out, right. Even substance abuse also costs Indian businesses billions of rupees, because this has become a major menace, and you know that some of the states are greatly affected when it comes to substance abuse, even at the national level also. Now, especially if you look at substance abuse, you will find that 6.5, this is the Indian data, 6.5% workers reported going to work while under the influence of drug or alcohol. So, this has become a major issue, especially at the lower level, and 5 to 8% report being under the influence of marijuana at our works. This is a global data, right. So, this data shows the significance of the problem, and then the need to look into solutions, right. So, and then the company is also going to lose lot of money, because if they are going to abuse alcohol or drug, which is going to create problem. So, it is going to not only create lose money, but there could be loss of property or damage to life also. Okay. So, that is why there is the reason for immediate concern if you are going to look into these issues. Okay. So, you have to see that yes, you are going to avoid these kind of problems, you offer these kind of services, okay, because if you are going to offer disciplinary courses and these kind of things, probably does not help much. So, it is very, very important to assist them to overcome these kind of problems. Okay. And then definitely this is a question that I have put in the last, is that would you want to fly in a plane with a drunken pilot, okay, because then your life, property, everything would be at stake. So, definitely not, you will not even go for a driving with a drunken driver, right, forget about flying in a plane. So, it is really a matter of concern to ensure that these kind of things do not happen, because it not only causes damage to the property and life, but apart from money, right. So, these are some questions that has been asked, and that is why it is a major concern for the organizations, right. So, you have to have a policy, though India we do not have any kind of policy, but other countries have this drug free workplace policy. We have certain rules and regulations. So, you need to promote drug free awareness among contractors and grant recipients, okay. And you tell employees about that yes, you have access to counseling programs, we have rehabilitation systems, okay, and then you are going to provide them this kind of program. Thank you very much.